frustration of walking out of that room, I can remember all of it. We were going through the hat on the floor, kicking it along, so angry. Our first timeline and plan and cash flow wasn't 7.5 years long or whatever it was. So if there wasn't 4 people involved in Sea Lanes, and if it was just us, or if it was just Joe, or just Simon, just Andy, I don't think any one of us would have got through that. How are we here again? That relentless sort of, we just dealt with this, and now we're back here again, going through same thing, different reason. When you're sat on the train, you can see the surface of the swimming pool as you're going through. So that sort of. But at the time when we were building it, and we faced so many challenges building it. November 21, I think we lost something like 17 days, 15 days maybe to weather. Yeah, it was. Cash flow was pretty squeaky at times. Yeah. Accepting that it's okay to make mistakes, and it doesn't have to be perfect or anything like that. But the most important thing is that you show up. We are all going to die at some point, so you have nothing to fear, nothing to lose. You don't put yourself out there, you'll never know.
I'm on a mission to help the world to see success differently. We're sharing the stories of our guests. I hope to inspire those that listen. This is the Different Hats podcast, produced by H2 Productions. I hope you can join us on this journey. Okay, I just wanted to say something about one of our sponsors, Search 7. They are a search marketing agency for social good. They elevate brands' online exposure locally, nationally and globally through strategic SEO and paid media consultancy. They specialise in many different sectors, including charities, e-commerce, travel, health and medical education, and professional and creative services. They also give agencies and charities the exposure they deserve via their hosted agency and charity events, helping to build community and connections. Their pledge is the inspiration behind their name. Since they started in 2011, they have pledged to give back 7% of their profits to charity. This has become a minimum of 7% each year, with their current fundraising surpassing £150,000 in support of 63 charities. Their latest campaign, #Share177k, aims to raise £177,000 by the end of 2026 to mark their 15th birthday. It's a pleasure to have them as part of the Series 7 of the podcast. I'm delighted. Thanks so much for your support. Okay, welcome to another episode of the podcast. My guest today is a director of the incredible Sea Lanes right here in Brighton. He's MD at QED and a non-executive director at the Wood Store. Delighted to welcome Ross Gilbert to the podcast. Ross, how are you, mate?
Yeah, very good, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Mate, this is awesome. I'm obviously a big fan of Sea Lanes, as we mentioned a little bit offline, so I'm often down there and swimming along. What a great facility.
Man,
that we've
yeah, thank you.
Mate, it's awesome.
Delighted.
Well, look, mate, really excited to delve in. As always, we're just going to start a little bit, go back to the beginning. I want to know, tell me something about, what do I need to know about you from a young age, just sort of helped shape who sits in front of me today?
Yeah, okay. I think, so I played a lot of sport growing up. I guess the sort of that was, and still playing.
What's your sport?
So growing up was sort of everything: football, rugby, cricket, sort of all the time outside, going through things like that. And then when I was about 11, I guess 10, 11, I had like Osgood Schlattus. It's called. It's like a growing pains in your knee. Yeah. And I couldn't play any sport or anything like that. So my sort of mum and dad, parents like, right, you need to get out of the house, sort of thing, go through. So, and my sort of granddad, my uncles, my dad always played golf. So I went down the golf club, and literally that was it. So I'm still playing Still playing loads of golf now.
What's your handicap?
I'm clinging to scratch.
Wow.
So
a proper golfer.
Going through, yeah, sometimes going through. So that was always sort of that was always a big part of my life. And then you sort of, little kids going through. So we would literally mornings get on my bike, go to the golf club, and we'd spend all day there. And even to like my sort of closest mates, all the guys that I keep in touch with, going through are the guys we not necessarily went to school with, but that we grew up playing golf and that we like shared that experience. And you've got, it has it's a bit of an old man's game reputation and things like that.
Cool.
But there's some really good things in there in terms of like etiquette. You can't give up.
Yeah.
Or you can, but we were always, so you can have like a non-return, so you can just walk off the golf course and things like that. But we were sort of always encouraged. Look, even if it's bad, you got to keep going. And I guess that would have, I'm probably pretty stubborn, resilient. I don't know, whichever way you look at it, going through from that sort of thing. So I guess that has a big influence in sort of, how I look at things, how I sort of play and stuff like that.
It's interesting, I guess, like with the perseverance, one thing sport gives you from a young age. I was the same, like everything, football, swimming, running, tennis, anything, loved it. Didn't start golf till I was a bit later. I run a golf league now just to try and compete. Yeah. I love golf. Yeah. Still at 18, I'm struggling. I'm getting there. I can get round. But I just think like I've mentioned offline, I've got 9-year-old twins, and if there's one thing for me, sport. I'm like, just get into it, whatever it is, get into it, because so much, like whether it be camaraderie from a team sport, or like you said, tennis, golf, something like that, where you're just that single-mindedness, that perseverance to get better and improve and stick with something is so important, and helps, I guess, so much when we come to business, right? How important that is.
Yeah, I think so. That great, and the balance of sort of, team sport where you're part of the whole, and you've got teammates, they can pick you up, you can pick them up, how that works. And then individual sport where, like you want, to a certain extent, you're on your own going through, and you got, you can't just you can sack it in and just, I'm off, I'm done. But that doesn't really sort of, pretty quickly you learn that's not necessarily the right way, or how you should hold yourself and what you're doing.
And I think for me, sport and business, like obviously Fernball is one of the things is combining those two things. But you go, so much for me is a mindset. Like, that's what sport has helped me. I think, I talk about sort of the education since I wasn't great at school, but sport got me through and got me anywhere just purely on the basis that I was quite good at whatever I played. But from a mindset like that thing that you're achieving, and that's helped me so much when it's come to business and times are tough, and you get, even getting up and going for a swim, right? And you go, I'm going to do a 2K or a 5K to whatever you're going to swim that day. Just that mindset going, I'm going to go and do that, and you do it. Whether you get up and go for a run, whatever it is, that type of thing where you go, I've set myself something and I'm going to go and achieve it. But then you relate that to business, and it just it's on the same path, right? Yeah,
definitely. It's so important, and particularly that sort of like, Dad was just like, how do you want to get from here to here? How do you eat an elephant? If you've got like a really long journey, like how do you do it? And it's like one bite at a time, one step at a time, and that sort of learning that, right, forget everything else. I'm just going to do that first little bit, which is the same thing, that same mentality with, no, I am going to go for a swim. Forget everything else that's going on, or I'm going to go for a run, or do that first step, and then sort of, I'm definitely a believer in sort of like something happens because something happens sort of thing, like that sort of, whether it's snowball effect or whatever it is. But if you don't do anything, well, nothing is going to happen. So at least if you do something, whether it's right or it's wrong, to some extent, doesn't really matter, as long as it's not illegal or anything, anything like that. But just sort of start, make a start, do it, and like, I think, there's lots of stuff out there and things like that, and it might be cliche or whatever, but it's so true. Like, you just do it. Doesn't matter what it is. Go through, do it as good as you can do it, and then see what happens. And then you can reflect on it, learn from it, or not. Or if it's a mistake, it's a mistake. But it's better to have done it than not. It would be definitely my sort of.
Mate, I completely agree. And I think just for listeners as well, that's such an important thing, because some people, there's a couple of things that will stop people from doing something, right? It's one, the fear of failure, like making a mistake. Like, what if that don't work? And the other thing is, sometimes you can go, I want to start this, but God, it just looks like such a big mission. As we talked a little bit offline, you sort of think about sea lanes and the process of getting that up and running, and that whole start can seem like an enormous task, but actually you go, right, this is the first step. As long as you take that first step and don't see it like that's my end goal, that's Mount Everest, I'm going to get there. It's them small incremental steps along the way, part of that journey, and you will eventually get there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because otherwise, you're looking at something like when something is that big and it takes, or things take a long time, or you're trying to, there's no reward along. If all you're trying to do is get there, then it's like, well, I'm so far away. What, like, you get so despondent and stuff like that. And the sort of, I have a lot with like chats with my wife and things like that about like, right, some days I just literally want to go and clear the garden, do the raspberries or something like that, and I can start it, and 2 hours later I'm done, and it's like, that's like the reward of that feeling is sort of, and I know it sounds stupid or whatever, but when a lot of the stuff that we're involved in takes years and years, to have something where you can like start, yeah, good, done it.
Yeah.
That has its own sort of motivational properties to it,
because I guess then you as well, you so like 120 odd episodes into this, and this again, chucking cliches all over the place, but the importance of enjoying that journey and being in that moment, right, is so, if you're so fixated somewhere in the future, it becomes so much more difficult to be in the moment and enjoy that journey, because the process is the fun part, right?
Yeah,
as tough as it is. We're chucking some challenges and bits and pieces that come along that way, and how we get through them. But part of it is the whole journey is part of the experience and the joy, because there's so many like Olympic champions and people like that sit opposite me, and you get to that point. Actually, that is not that big euphoria moment sometimes when you get there. So if you haven't enjoyed that part of it, then bloody hell, you're going to get let down a little bit at the end, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you take the rewards, take the small wins, enjoy that thing. It's, not always enjoyable, or at least the sort of the emotions, be they good or bad, along the way. That's what makes something mean something.
Yeah,
I think, to you, and that like sort of going through, and I mean we can come on to sea lanes and the roller coaster of sort of up and down, and all of us, and I think one of the there were the sort of four shareholders involved, and then Harry, who's on our team, George, Mark, like sort of all of it. There ended up being a lot of us involved, and when you got like one of you's having a bad day, but someone's always got something positive to say, and you can just sort of encourage each other and nudge each other along, and it's like, no, it'll be all right, because I found I was chatting to this person and they said this, and that sort of, and then your journey just wiggles all over the place, isn't it? It's not a straight line.
Isn't it? Nothing's linear, right? Nothing's ever linear. And I guess listening to that as well, taking a little bit from what you said at the beginning, but having a good group of people around you and having teammates, I guess, as part of that, does make that journey a little bit easier and a little bit, because you're all going to have up and downs days, different days, right?
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you need someone to pick you up or slap you down if you're getting a bit carried away, or whatever the scenario is. You need that, and just you got to share that, and that's the fun. That's what makes it worthwhile. I think. And
what about school and stuff, like? Because you obviously went on to higher education and degrees and stuff. What enjoyed school?
I I enjoyed playing sport at school and stuff like that. I think we. So my eldest is she's 11 going through, and so our second is 8. So they're just starting to bring home their school reports, stuff like that. And my mum had kept all my school reports and things like that going through. So it was quite interesting as a family to like read through. And my wife's report's pretty similar in the sort of like, you know, could always do better, like could do better, or, you know, if I was interested in something going through, then I really enjoyed school going through. But when you're forced to do something going through, just don't, you know, just rebel against it a bit and that sort of thing. But yeah, I wouldn't say I was like massively into school, but I enjoyed the sort of the people, the sport, and we were playing sport, you know, all the time in all the sports teams, travelling around, going through. So that's what I liked about school, to be able to have that platform, to be able to play, going through, and similar sort of university and on into that. So
it's interesting what you say about. I often talk on here about the education system and all that. Like, for me, I feel like it's broken a bit in this. It's just such an archaic form of teaching, like you said, trying to find, tapping into what people love and what they're good at and what they enjoy, as opposed to like mine are 9 now and they're doing these like maths tests on a day. Like one of my daughters, I've got twins, and one of them loves it and really into it. The other one just getting all worried about it, and I'm like, why are they testing them at like 9 years old? Do you know what I mean? Like, and then so their first message of it, just because they're picking it up in a different way, their first message of life in general is, I'm not good at that and I'm failing. I don't buy into it. It frustrates me a little bit. I think it's such an archaic way of teaching, for example, that needs to be looked at. I always find
it's very sort of tick box process sort of thing, rather than, you know, and the best teachers and some of the sort of the people that had an influence on me were the people that sort of, you know, accept, okay, you might not be good at that, but you're good at that. And, you know, really what's important is, you know, how you talk to, you know, do you look people in the eye? You know, how do you hold yourself? How do you walk into a room? That sort of thing, rather than whether you know what 7 times 9 is or whatever at that age, sort of thing. And that I think it just gets a bit, you know, we tend to lose sight a little bit of what is important, because there's this whole regimented system around, well, you know, first year curriculum, kids need to count to 100. Well, okay, but some can, some can't. Does that mean that if you can't, you have to stay there until you can? Like, it doesn't make any.
Yeah, no, it does. It blows away. But look, I think the more people I talk to about it, so many more people are looking at it through the lens of exactly that. Like, just find things that light you up, and simple things like life skills. Fact of, and again, this is what sport does for you, right? The fact that I was in a football changing room, being able to have banter and build relationships and communicate with people, that I've built businesses based on that. Just the fact that you can be in a room and be able to talk to someone, and I think like those skills are going to get people a lot further than I can do algebra, for example. Do you know what I mean? Which I can't anymore. But you know.
In like without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, definitely.
What dreams, ambitions, when you was at that stage? Obviously, sport was a big thing, but what was in your head? Did you know what you wanted to do when you? At
sort of 17, 18, I wanted to play golf.
Yeah.
As a
pro.
As a pro and going through it. And I mean, I wanted it. I was probably never technically good enough, and I certainly didn't have that sort of next level of belief. You know, like if you look at professional sport and that top level, particularly in golf, where there are so many people that can technically do it, thousands of them. But that, you know, what sets those top 5%, 2% apart is sort of the belief, the mental side, you know, that sort of thing. So when I was young, I was super keen to go and play golf, see if I could do it going through. and then I actually went to uni in the States to play golf.
Wow.
Going through, and when I got there, so my first year was pretty good, but even just being there, so it's sort of you're almost going from a little bit big fish, little pond in and around Sussex, and I play golf at Worthing, which is a great, and a lot of good golfers come out of there going through, and then you go into sort of the next level of the system, and then all of a sudden you're like, there's a team of 10 of us or something, 8 of us going through 5 spots to play, and you're getting the team, and then you're going, and then there's 25 other teams at this place, and you're going through, and it's like, oh, I actually played pretty good, and then you look at thing, you're like, oh, right, yeah, maybe I'm not that good, sort of thing,
right.
going through. But that was a great sort of, 18, away from home, having to deal with my own stuff, all the sort of things, even just like visas and travelling and that sort of thing, and then you pretty much realise, okay, well, I'm just going to enjoy this for the opportunity of what it is.
Amazing experience, right?
Yeah, incredible. Yeah. And if it happens, it happens. It doesn't. Obviously, it didn't, and not even close. I probably still, I'd like to play more and more, and then like when you get to 50, you get maybe another chance or things like that, or maybe just play some better amateur stuff. At the moment, I don't have a huge amount of time to play, but it's definitely in my plans to create myself more time, and particularly as my kids grow up, and as they, my youngest is the youngest two actually, to be fair, are reasonably interested. They want to come and go to the golf course and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, amazing. That's like
the dream.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. To play, and I can, I used to I always go and play golf with my granddad and dad, and my uncles and stuff like that as well growing up. So there's always that sort of family atmosphere, the banter of like, who's the best golfer in the family, sort of thing. So that was probably the sort of, that was my like moonshot, the sort of dream and things like that. And then after that, I don't know, I'd sort of graduated, came back. I didn't really know what I wanted to do early 20s and stuff like that. I'd always been interested in buildings and the stuff that Dad was doing. My granddad was a surveyor in Brighton as well, so I've got that sort of property background. It was always around the dinner table. It was always sort of going on. And then Dad's sort of assistant went on maternity leave, so I came back. I was working in Sevenoaks for a stapler manufacturer as like my first graduate job or whatever, and I was super bored. Nothing to do with the products, just sort of in general. And then I was like, right, okay, I want to go travelling, going through, and then this opportunity came up to cover off Dad's assistant's maternity leave, so 12 months. So I moved back home for 12 months. So I was like, right, okay, I'm going to work, save up some money, and then I'm going to disappear, going through. And that was really good and interesting, and I was really lucky with. So Dad was doing the sort of New England Quarters regeneration around the back of the train station at the time, and things like that. And there were, and I could go. It was basically him and I, and there were. I always remember whether he'll like me saying there were 2 rules. So I wasn't allowed to say anything. So I would literally go into all the meetings, chief exec of the council, Network Rail, Sainsbury's, all over the place, going up to London. With the lawyers and things like that. So I wasn't allowed to say anything in the meetings. I could ask all the questions I wanted to in the car or behind the scenes or anything like that. I wasn't allowed to say anything, and I wasn't allowed to yawn. They were the two. They were the 2 rules. So basically, I had to go to sleep the night before, and being sort of on form and doing that. And that, I think looking back at that had a big influence on sort of my interest in property and development and that side of things.
Was it then do you think like you look at the things that you're involved in, projects, etc., but like that entrepreneurial spirit, I guess then was that the spark of that? Like, was after not making it at golf, but thinking, was there anything in the back of your mind thinking I'm gonna run my own business, I'm gonna do my own thing? Or
Yeah, probably. Like my mum will always say, like I always used to say when I was young, like I don't want to wear a suit. I never wanted to sort of wear a suit, work in an office, be sort of
Corporate.
sort of confined or like having part of the machine or something like that. So I guess that was always sort of, I was probably always, I might say like rebellious or trouble, but always sort of independent or, like I was always pretty good at being, right, I want to do this, not like from me, like from inside sort of, I want to go down this route or I'm interested in that rather than sort of doing something because
Where's that come from? Do you think, like from you?
I don't know. I mean, it's got sort of, my, both my parents I think are probably pretty similar in that in that sense. I was pretty close to my grandparents, so on dad's side, growing up, and I think they were always sort of quite straightforward in that sort of, like you can supportive, I guess, in the sort of rather than oh no, that's a stupid idea, don't do it. It's like exploring it a little bit and being open to to what.
Be curious, right? I guess that's
yeah,
the thing,
yeah. That's the thing. Don't just because somebody says it's so doesn't you're allowed to ask why. So sort of thing. That I think that always came out from my sister and I. I think we were always allowed to question, sort of thing, rather than.
Are you like that with your kids as well? Nah, like. Oh.
I like to
Daddy,
think so.
Daddy.
Yeah.
But I'm with mine. Like you hear that, he's like, Daddy, can I just ask you? Daddy, can I just? Yeah, and I've always said to them, ask me as many. I love that they're curious.
Yeah.
Like, they know I do this, and they go, "Who's on your podcast?" And they always ask me, ask questions. I love but they tap into that. So even when they're in bed, like bedtime now, and Lucy especially, she's like,
one more question.
Open questions. I'm like. Killing me, and I can hear my wife in the background going, just like she has none of it. She goes, no, that's enough, go to bed. And I'm like, yeah, just go on in, one more. Yeah, but it's important, right? Being curious is such an important thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Because it just gets you. We want to find out, like you said. I guess again back to your story, and especially I guess I want to delve into the sort of sea lanes bit, but. That process of constantly, like you said, being curious, finding out, and keep going and keep developing. That's the whole point of it, right? Especially, I guess, in the whole property side of stuff as well, I guess.
Yeah, there's definitely like we've done a lot of like what's called like meanwhile use. So you've got a piece of land that is destined for the big plan, the local plan, or the big statutory documents that take 10 years to create, and going through say it needs to be this, but in the reality is the need is for something different at the moment. So like exploring, okay, well, that might happen at some point down the future, but in the meantime, can we do this, or how does that work, and that that sort of thing. And that we took that approach into sea lanes. It's like we always had the vision. There was always the vision from the original guy, and we weren't involved in so like Joe, Andy and Simon, they won the original competition, and we got involved at slightly sort of later stage with sort of the vision was there and things like that, and then it's like how do we get there, what's the thing. And I think what we sort of brought was that, well, we'd been down the route before where you just bite-sized chunks, break it up step by step going through. And that sort of, that happened with sea lanes as we put, the first planning application, and we got on a positive side, we got a lot of trust with the council. They, we had all the contracts in place. We were submitting a planning application for the bigger scheme, and we also submitted and opened a pop-up going through. So we literally had we had a shipping container bar. And we had an endless swimming pool, which is like a treadmill for swimming, in a couple of shipping containers with a roof terrace on top and a it was used as sort of like a physio massage therapy with a, so you got upstairs, you got a little roof terrace, great view going through the swimming element of it. So we were engaged, that was an amazing tool to engage with the swimming community that already existed in Brighton and was massive, and it was growing, becoming more and more popular again as sort of people realised the benefits of swimming in general as an exercise, let alone getting in the cold water, getting in the sea, all those sort of, the connections with nature, all of that side of things, that we could sort of start tapping into that. And I remember pretty early on we had somebody approached us to do a silent yoga disco. Didn't know what that was at the time going through, and we were like, yeah, okay, and that sort of curious point. All right, yeah, let's do it. And something like 119 people turned up at 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning to do, and we just had the concrete apron that was there going through, and then all of a sudden you start sort of, wow, okay, that's interesting that that you get that sort of response and going through, and we had loads of support for our planning, and as we sort of developed, I think we had 300 or 400 letters of support for planning application. We got rejected once at planning committee, which was painful. I can remember throwing my hat, walking out the committee room, going through, and they've made a decision, like, I don't sort of say too much about it, but the decision supposedly on the public side of things was based on like a real lack of understanding of what the project was offering and going through, that it was some sort of elitist swimming pool, only 7 people could swim in it and things like that. And the frustration of walking out of that room, I can remember all of it. We were going through the hat on the floor, kicking it a lot, like so angry. You put so much work, and you're trying to be so thoughtful into the messaging of what happens with a project like that, and then it's just like, what have we done? And then you go through that reaction of, well, what did we do wrong, and why, like that whole sort of what happens when you get rejected and sort of doing something, don't you? You go through the emotional sort of cycles and tranches and things like that, and obviously we were all sitting in the pub, like writing our public statement afterwards and things like that, and we had about, you write the one that makes you feel good at the first time, and then you delete it because obviously you can't say that in public. Going through, and then you sort of, iterate the iterations of something that is going through, and then dust yourself off. Right, okay, well, find the positives in it. Right, we can address this. We can do this. Go back in, and eventually we went back in. We got planning consent. Amazing. Sort of going through, and that a lot of the stuff that happened in the pop-up going through. So it was the pandemic happened. So then all of a sudden, like sort of and I think people spending health and well-being, people spending more time outdoors, that was trending anyway. And then I think it just, obviously the pandemic and the lockdown and all that stuff just sort of gave everyone a jolt in the arm around, wow, actually this is so important going through, and that side of things. So that, again, I think that helped us, and and great sort of, if we hadn't experienced the road before, we might not have not been in that position. We might have been on site building during that time, and that would have been really tough to deal with going through. So I genuinely try not to get, I do react to what happens, and the emotions come out and go through, but then generally, if you believe in it and you sort of keep going, you can look back at it and be like, oh, actually, well, maybe there was, if that hadn't happened, we wouldn't sat here, and then this is a good thing that's happening. So that that it helps, that it is that sort of step by step process.
And it might, a couple of things. What first, when you first come on board, like they won the bid, first cut, and then you first come on board. You say about 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
Come on board, yeah. So at that point, what was it at that point that you looked and did you think it would take as long as it did to get up and running at the beginning? Was it always like, look, this is a 5, 6, 10-year plan, whatever, to get it up, or was it we could get this done in a couple of years? What was at that early stage?
Yeah, I mean, generally, like most people in the industry, that you sort of, you know, you got a bit of an inkling that things take time. You know, and that is one of the reasons why sort of doing something now while you're waiting for the project to develop and go through is important, and sort of some of the stuff we do. But yeah, you don't, you know, our first timeline and plan and cash flow wasn't 7.5 years long or whatever it was. So definitely not. And you just keep adding to it and sort of going through. And even now, if we do a project plan or going through, you don't. You sort of do recognise, but you just don't allow yourself to, you know, when you make a planning application, you're meant to get a statutory decision in sort of 13 weeks. So when you build your timeline and your planning goes in, and you can control everything up to that point, and you can control everything after that point. But the bit in the middle is sort of 13 weeks and sits there, and it's like, it might be 13 weeks, might be 26, probably more like 52, you know, going through. So you've got, you know, you can only control the factors that you control. But no, I don't think anybody really plans for projects and things to take that long.
Okay, I'm just going to say something about one of our sponsors, Riverval. The world of cars, vans and minibuses is often a pain point for many of us. The hassle of finding the right vehicle, let alone looking after it, are all more things to add to our lists as busy people. Riverval's mission is to make motoring manageable, and that's why they provide leasing, purchasing, servicing and vehicle management. So whether you have one family car or a fleet of vans for your business, Riverval are your trusted vehicle supplier. Visit www.riverval.co.uk. Okay, let's jump back to the podcast. Just the nature of the beast, and then I guess, but something what I'm keen to explore from a mindset point of view is that with something that takes that long, and with those bumps on the road, like you say, you build up to something like that, and then you get knocked back with a planning application. Was there any points on that journey where you thought, at least I'm out?
Loads.
Loads.
Loads. And all of us, and I think I touched on it before, like, you know, and Harry and I talk about this quite a lot. It's sort of, you know, if there wasn't 4 people involved in Sea Lanes, and if it was just us, or if it was just Joe, or just Simon, just Andy, I don't think any one of us would have got through that
really
on our own.
Yeah, blimey. Because it. So then, what is it when you're here and you're at that point? Because I spoke to a few people. I spoke to Giles Palmer, who launched Brandwatch. I don't know if you know Giles. He launched a company, Brandwatch, 13, 14 years, sold ridiculous amounts of money. But he said one of the things he mentions about being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, you've got to have that eternal optimism. Right, we've got to get up every day. Got to crush it today.
Yeah. Got to
go out there. You've got to have that some form of that self-belief, because you're gonna get slapped in the face a lot, right?
Yeah.
Really? And you go, but again, back to that thing around having good people around you, whether they're business partners or not, or whatever that looks like, but having those good people around you, a community and whatever that staff and all of them things that you're sort of in it together. Well,
it's infectious, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
If one person's got, and it goes both ways, but if one person's got, like, you know what, I can't swear.
Yeah,
can I
go for it, mate. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what, fuck it. We can do this. This is what's next. Let's do this. And you need one person to pick you up, and then everyone sort of gets, okay, yeah, cool. Same thing, like locker room, changing rooms, halftime team talk, you know, whatever the pep talk, wherever it's coming from, in whatever scenario. You only need one spark to keep you going. And, you know, we almost like take it in turns. Like,
it's your turn.
It's your turn to be positive. I've had enough, sort of thing. Yeah, and that you know, the people thing is the important bit. You know, you know that.
Yeah. You know, I think it doesn't matter. Like, for me, it doesn't matter what I've done. in conversations I've had on here, what industry you're in, what business you're doing, whatever it is, your product you're selling, so people will buy from people, and without that, there's all that obviously the talk with AI and all the stuff that's happening at the minute, and mind blowing stuff, right? Like my mind don't even go there, but I don't think as advanced as an amazing tool as that's going to be, which is incredible, there's no question about it. True human connection and getting good people, nothing can replace that. I don't think.
No, I'd agree. No chance.
I just don't. But and like I say, I see it as a brilliant tool, and I've started delving it, like dipping my toe into. Hey, bloody hell, I can do that. And like I said before, I'm a bit of a technophobe, a bit of like. But for me, I'm blimey. But like nothing. There's not one thing in the world that will replace this for me. Like sitting opposite someone, just building a relationship, having a conversation, having some form of human connection.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's a great tool.
Yeah.
You know, like a shovel or a bicycle you know, something like that. It's just a modern day equivalent of that. It's very early, isn't it? No one really understands what it is, what it can do and stuff like that. But you know, we're playing around with it at work a little bit, and it just sort of helps you get there faster. Sort of going through, I think, as a tool.
I mentioned before because I always want to. With business, it is, and life in general is hard, right? And it can be really tough, and there's some great times, and it's appreciating that. But I am always keen to just talk through some of the challenges that we have faced in business, just so that, because I think sometimes a lot of people listening, and I've been there myself many times, and you know, you're in that position, and I want to try and share some of those stories so that people are listening, going, actually, yeah, you can get through that, and you look at where you get to when you're in. So talk to me. I mean, you mentioned about the planning application and stuff like that, but talk to me about some of the other challenges you faced over the period with Sea Lanes.
So there's a big storm drain culvert that runs the whole way along Brighton seafront. You can go in it and you can drive a truck down it. Right. It's about 13, 14 metres underneath the chalk going through. It's massive going through, and it runs just along the edge of our site, but it literally runs from the marina to King Alfred. So like half of the seafront is built on top of it going through, and we had this sort of almost ongoing battle with our local water company. When you do anything, they're a statutory consultee, so it comes back, computer says, sorry, you can't build on this. And it's like, I mean, we must have had that half a dozen times, if not more, going through. You know, and you got no. Eventually, we did find someone on the end of the telephone that we could actually talk to going through. But you know, trying to get to that point of like, you know, how are we here again? You know, like that relentless sort of. We just dealt with this, and now we're back here again, going through same thing, different reasons. So like, you know, those things where the system just kicks back at you, going through is so frustrating, and like. How do you get through that, and that sort of, you know, learning a bit of that, not humility, but certainly patience in terms of sort of, and that determination. It's like, look, it's okay, we got through it last time. It's the same answer. We just need to go back through the same process and sort of work through that. You know, that was pretty big. Obviously, it was a really tricky site to build. So. You know, at the time, obviously, Volks Railway running straight through the middle of it, you know, and working with them around sort of, right, so they open from pretty much Easter holidays to October half term going through. So it's like, okay, so we've got to get concrete trucks across the railway. We've got to pour the concrete while they're closed because we can't, you know, so those logistical challenges going through. And to be fair, in the end, sort of, you know, James was great, and we ended up having like a really good, you know, working relationship. When the train goes past and he's driving, you know, he's waving to us and going through. And I think, you know, the result is that for both things, you know, Sea Lanes is more interesting, and sort of unique and quirky because the train runs straight through the middle of it. And I think the Volks Railway, which has been the oldest running electric railway along the seafront going through, now has an added sort of attraction. You almost, when you're sat on the train, you can see the surface of the swimming pool as you're going through. So that sort of. But at the time when we were building it,
it's a challenge.
Yeah, it was like, and you're trying to juggle your timeline moves. You get a delay, 4-week delay, which is pretty normal in construction going through, and you're like, well, we don't have 4 weeks of buffer at the back end, so no, that can't happen. Go back and give me a different answer, or give us a different answer in terms of how that comes out. That was sort of, and we faced so many challenges building it. You got railway on one side, sea on the other, busy public pavement thoroughfare going through, no deliveries, no storage. The weather, I think November 21, I think we lost something like 17 days, 15 days maybe to weather, something like that. Like there's only like 21 working days or something in the thing, so you're like, I just
give me a break.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Come on, what do we need to do to get past that? So and I don't think those challenges are not unique to sea lanes in the building. I think anybody who's sort of been through, most people who've been through building projects, anybody who tells you we were on budget, we were on time, it was easy, they're not telling the truth. But, there must have been something in there, or they are exceptional, and then I would like to talk to them. And
I guess from you sort of alluded a bit there, I guess from to manage a project of that magnitude, I'm just trying to get my head around like cash flow is a killer for any business one, but I guess for something of that magnitude, a project of that size, that's got to be such a big thing, isn't it? Like the cash flow. So how does that?
Yeah. It's particularly when a lot of it's your own, own cash, and going through, and you're projecting, right? Where are we? Where are we sitting? Oh, we need more for this or that. For that, obviously, we had some help with the bank, but that was pretty tight in terms of there wasn't everybody queuing up to do that. And to be fair, the sort of the stuff that came out of the pandemic with the British Business Bank support, that's in the back of behind of sea lanes and things like that. So the sort of the stuff that was put in place to support business probably doesn't get enough credit. It's really easy to bash the politicians, bash the government, bash the civil servants and stuff like that, who are generally working, trying to work in the right direction and to put these places in sense. But it was, cash flow was pretty squeaky at times. Yeah. I think we put, whether you put sort of all the chips on the table, but pretty close from our perspective. Yeah. Personal, everything sort of like, I don't know if I was sort of with Giza and my wife, it's like, not that the house was on the line or anything, not that, but it was pretty.
How is she in those situations? What is that? That obviously puts pressure on home life, doesn't it? And those type of situations, being like I said, been there. First business failed, had to sell the house. Do you know what I mean? It was tough, and but I guess that, again, back to having that support network around you, right?
Yeah. That's the same thing. And she sort of at the time, like, what did she say? What she said? I love sea lanes, but I hate sea lanes. In terms of that sort of, like the journey and like what it took out of us as, family, and go and show the kids now, and it's like, oh wow, that's really cool. Going through, and it's like, I'm delighted that you think like that, because everything that went through it. But again, I don't think I would change anything. Well, we could have had less stress and sort of less pressure, that sort of thing. But now it's sort of, to some extent, it's got more value now because it's had so much. We're all sort of quite protective of it and sort of
passionate about it. I guess that,
Yeah.
like, it's got to be, I guess as well, Lee, again, back to that thing, like what some of the things that get you through, you got to be like, one, you believe in the project so much and obviously clearly passionate about it, and not only that, like, because obviously you're from Brighton. Are you Brighton born and
Yeah, so
bred?
I was born in Shoreham, around.
Yeah,
sort of.
around, so like, to do something so incredible for the community, right? And it is an incredible. Like,
Yeah.
I'm an early riser, so 6 o'clock in the morning I go down there. There's a lot of people in that swimming pool.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
What an incredible thing, like, do you know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
to have created and like, have you had that moment? Or did you, before you sort of have that moment where you sort of like looking around during this period, you go, "Can I have done this? Is it like, or is it right? This is just this part now. We've got to do this and we've got to do that." Where have you allowed yourself that moment?
A little bit. I think we had. So we had fun. We had when we opened on the 2nd of June last year. So we had. I mean, the sun was shining going through, and we had. I mean, we were literally working up till the 1st of June, going through, and then and we'd sort of. I can remember we were sat in a meeting with Duncan. And it was like, right, with our opening event, we're going to plan it, and we're going to say what date it was going to be, and then we're going to put it back at least 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, to give ourselves that extra little buffer because we're probably going to need it going through. So that was sort of, again, really sort of wise words from, the people around the table going through. So we had the opening day, and we had 6 teams doing a relay race. We made everyone do a swimming medley relay race.
Love that.
And we had like the contractors team, the professionals, the council's lifeguarding service, South Downs Leisure, who's a swimming pool operator, their lifeguards are sort of got together, and we had like a blowout party on the roof terrace in the evening going through, and that was just like, awesome. Yeah. Standing around, sort of seeing what it means to everybody, enjoying, and that sort of moment of reflection. I think since we've opened and going through, there's obviously a lot of sort of, we're still pretty hands-on. It's not like a sort of hands-off project where, you don't...
We've done it now.
Yeah, we've done it now, and it's sort of somebody else. We're still developing it, putting events on, so sort of swimming events, and working with the existing... so we've done a lot of work with Brighton Swimming Club, so oldest, longest going swimming club in the country.
Yeah.
I think I got that right.
Yeah.
And then so peer-to-peer, Brighton peer-to-peer, historic races next weekend. So we've been sort of trying to support and help the existing community. From okay, we're new within the community, but also like, we're trying to whether galvanise it, but not in the sense that's sort of taking over, but just sort of bring it together and help. Our experiences to help them and help that happen. We're still doing a lot of sort of so team building and just understanding how the place is used. So we've got sort of like heat maps and like some quieter times in the afternoons. Okay, look, what can we do with schools? What can we do with the education side of things? Brighton Surf Lifesaving Club have got a couple of programs starting in a couple of weeks, working with the RNLI. So still a lot sort of going through building the team to try and at the team at Sea Lane, so that we're sort of less operationally involved would be good. Get a bit more time. So yeah, whether we've really sort of sat back, I guess we're probably like the year is just sort of up now. So like technically we're going through snags and sort of the final things from the construction, sort of putting all that to bed and things like that. And we should take the time to reflect a little bit on it, but no, we haven't. Not properly.
It's easy, like you said again. Back to the whole thing of the journey and try. And it is so adamant like, to celebrate those. Well, we can't. Look, part of being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, is that we want to keep moving forward. Right? Whatever we've got on, whatever we're doing, we're always moving forward. We've always got something. It's never. I don't think I'm ever going to get to a point where I go, God, I've done it now, made it. That's it. I'm gonna just maybe one day play a bit of golf with you and we'll go.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't think because it's part of our makeup that you want to. Reason this is called Different Hats is because I've run different businesses and I love doing different things. And I like, I guess, being busy and being involved in stuff to make stuff happen. Cause that's what makes us tick, right? So
it definitely, and that sort of, that work hard, play hard sort of mentality, and I think it would be boring if you're not. I don't know, feet up. I'm probably not that sort of. I'm quite happy to go and sit on a beach and do nothing for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, even probably a month. Yeah. But eventually, I would be like, right, no, and then my head is spinning and worrying. We could go and do this and stuff like that. And Sea Lanes, we got sort of, we've got ambitions in terms of, we sort of labelled ourselves to some extent. Like there is no national open water swimming centre, so we were like, okay, well, we want to call ourselves the National Open Water Swimming Centre, but internally we've got like a list of criteria for us that is sort of, all right, well, if we do all of these things, then that's what we think a National Open Water Swimming Centre should look like in, like races and, all of the elements, the nutrition and people training and that, that sort of thing. But then also, the very sort of, we talk quite a lot about like pathways, like anybody can come in and swim in Sea Lanes, and you can see from sort of, heads up, 6 lanes. So like, the triathletes in their wetsuits bombing up and down, going through sit on one side, and on the other side is sort of, just movement up and down, heads up, breaststroke. That's cool, and everything is acceptable and encouraged. And there's, and we've tried things like to give people guidance around, look, if you're up and back in a minute, 2 minutes, that sort of thing. So you can sort of signpost people to where they go, and different times you get different people swimming and things like that. So we've definitely got sort of, I don't think the job is sort of done yet in terms of what we think Sea Lanes should be. So we got some summer swims, maybe some winter stuff, some colder water swimming. And sort of, and then at that point, like you say, like it's like an operational entity. So it's always sort of, you're not selling bottle tops or widgets or anything like that. It's living. It sort of evolves and things change and different people come down, and we've had some amazing visitors already and talks and things like that. So trying to create that sort of platform and community of active people, sea swimmers, or sort of anybody who's interested in the water and going through, because like we touched on in the beginning, it's so important to get everybody has the ability to swim.
And I think, and for me, the biggest is from a well-being point of view, right? Like, even as a runner, like I love running as well. I've done a couple of marathons, great, but like a podcast on and I listen to something and you're still absorbing content and whatever. Like, swimming's probably and I've tried meditation, struggle with meditation. Swimming's the only thing, because you just head down 1, 2, 3, right? And it's for me, like, what are you like you mentioned earlier about seeing your brain's working, because that's how we're sort of wired. What are you like at switching off and having that downtime, and how are you obviously promoting, how are you with your own sort of well-being?
Yeah, I'm pretty, I would say pretty good. I'm quite good at sort of separating stuff out and not getting sort of too too sort of bogged down in certain things. I get quite frustrated. I'm pretty impatient going through, which sort of like trying to recognise that. You know, swimming is an outlet. Golf, to be fair, is the sort of sunny day, whether it's like competing or whether it's just playing with mates, going through just outdoors. You know, and I've got pretty. You know, I'm very lucky in like my. You know, I have control over my lifestyle. I can pretty much choose what I want to do where, which is a massive thing. You know, that feeling of control. I'm not on a hamster wheel or you know anything like that. You know, I could always do with some more exercise and that sort of thing. But generally, my head is pretty clear and definitely getting, you know, improving all the time. I think in terms of clarity, what do I want? You know, I still think of myself as young. You know, going through and not necessarily, you know, don't have all the answers and that sort of thing. Always been pretty good at. I've always been pretty open in terms of that side of things. That really squirrel anything away or sort of like turn it over and over. Most of my stuff is sort of like, oh, if we change that process or you know the booking process and yeah, it's things like that. Just like the detail is probably the main thing. But you know, swimming's been important and the sort of you know the journey between us, and I think also in the sort of because we've got like a little, it's almost like an integrated team within what we've got going on at QED, and then within Sea Lanes. So most people who are involved in QED have some sort of role within Sea Lanes as well. That sort of side of things. We did an escape room the other day for team building day. You know, that was great fun.
Amazing.
Sort of going through. So yeah, I think.
I guess all that helps with the culture, right? The culture, I
Yeah,
guess which is so important with any business, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, and that's definitely sort of, you know, I'm trying to, with all the stuff that we're doing, trying to get into right. Like I want to focus on, and I want to focus on the culture and a set like what's expected. You know, what are our values? Like taking responsibility, being accountable. Accepting that it's okay to make mistakes and it doesn't have to be perfect or anything like that. But the most important thing is that you show up and you keep going and you don't not do something because you're worried about what might happen if you were to do it and you know stuff like that. Like most of the you know perceptional. Most problems are sort of, or perceived problems exist more in our thoughts and in our worries and insecurities and stuff like that than actually sort of on paper or physically going through. So that trying to instill that into everybody.
You mentioned there about obviously mistakes and stuff. What's like we've alluded a couple of times over the course. What's your relationship like with failure?
Well, I'm a golfer, so I've failed. You know, how many rounds of golf that I have blown up. You know, sort of just lost. You know, sort of been through that. It's not. Yeah, I don't think. I don't think I have an issue with failure. You know, and it's also like, how do you define it? You know, it's probably not dissimilar to like the definition of success and things like that. Like, you know, if you do something and it doesn't work, but you've done it to the best of your ability, some people would say that was a failure. Other people would say, well, that was a success because you couldn't have done it any better than that from the start. So it's sort of, you know, I've done loads of. Lost plenty of money in the projects and the sort of the stuff that we're doing, and that you know that always hurts in going through and the sort of dealing with, you know. So as a developer, you got to sort of generally have a pot of capital to go and invest it in projects, and then you want the projects to deliver and then financially work, and then you wait a bit, and then your capital comes back, and hopefully you've got more than you started with, and you keep building, going through that, and you're managing risk the whole way through. But sometimes you come back with less or significantly less than you started with, and it's like, all right, I've got to go back to the grind, back to working it up and going through and things like that. So yeah, I don't, other than in, and golf is really easy because you hit it and you count it, and it's like a defined, you play 18 holes, it's got a par, it tells you what you should do, and then you go through. So that's really sort of, that is pretty black and white in terms of, you can be a success or a failure on the golf course, depending, if you're 5 under par through 13, and I don't know if you watch the golf on Sunday, but like Rory, how what he's going through, to some extent it looks, he missed 2 short putts not to win a major championship, but then all the successes and everything that he did to get there, and how he deals with responding to that.
I just wanted to take a moment to talk about one of our sponsors, Nostos, an authentic experience of Greece right here in the heart of Hove. In a world brimming with dining options, finding that one place that captivates your palate and heart isn't always easy. It's about more than food. It's the stories, the ambience, the slice of another world. This is the essence of Nostos, an award-winning Greek restaurant. With traditional recipes passed down through generations, each dish promises a story and a piece of heritage. And Nostos is more than just a restaurant, it's a community contributor. Each dining experience supports initiatives close to their heart, from local charities to cultural events, enriching Brighton and Hove's social fabric. They also provide catering services, bringing Greek cuisine to your personal events. For a taste of Greece without leaving town, visit nostos-hove.co.uk. And when you do go, say Sam recommended the feta nests. Oh my God, they are amazing. That's the key, isn't it? I think with anything, in failure, success, whatever it is, it's how we react to things, right? It's how we react to situations, how we respond to those tough times, those good times, all of those things. It's our reaction to those things is what makes us and carries us going forward.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that you can control. All the external stuff, it's just opinion, isn't it? And the sort of, the good people around you will, give you a slap if you need a slap, or pick you up if you need picking up, that sort of thing. But, we don't operate, thankfully, in a world where, the press and the media and stuff are interested in at all in what we're doing, and they don't have opinion and comments and stuff. That's a whole nother ball game to sort of deal with. I don't, the people that can get through that incredibly sort of thick skin and going through, and our sort of, on our level, it just, you have. It's your mind, your thoughts, your brain. So in theory, they can be as positive as you want them to be, or as negative as you want them to be. You've got control over that. Always to the kids, I can't do it. Well, if you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right. So go and think about that, and sort of going through. I do believe you have a lot of self-determination, like your own ability, and a lot of that I think stems from that when you believe that going through, then failure and success is much more personal than sort of external inputs, external factors.
And we can listen to so, especially social media, and there's so much external validation that we crave, and you worry about that. Our kids, the next generation, they're fixated on external validation, right? From how many likes you're going to get on something, just blows my mind. But at the same time, actually, so much of it's down to our own self-talk, isn't it? Because ultimately, whatever we are, I'm adamant with this as well, that we've got a choice, and how we choose at that point when you're struggling with whatever those things are, it's having that choice of making that. There's so much to do with what's up there, and how you, like you said, there's some things. I listened to your story, I guess, like you said, with the size of projects and just being involved in that space, the roller coaster of emotions with finance and everything that comes with that. But you've got to be able to take that step back and be able to just, I can only control what like you said, 17 days or whatever of weather. What, you can't control that, can you?
No.
Yeah,
no,
you're not Michael Fish,
Yeah.
so you can't do that. Do you know what I mean? So how do you? You can only control the controllables. What that is for me, with people listening, that's such an important message to drive home, wherever you are. And the one thing, as you've mentioned, the one thing that you can control is what's going on up there and how you talk to yourself on that.
Yeah, and it's really easy. Oh, it's a lot easier to talk about it than it is to be sat in the and having the sort of, almost like the presence of mind to, I'm just going to breathe 3 times and calm down and fuck, what are we going to do now? Sort of thing, and that sort of how every individual deals with that sort of moments, because, otherwise you can just
go,
snowball out of it.
You live overseas, don't you?
Yeah.
So how does that work with the, like,
so
what was the decision to do that, and how does that work with travelling back and forth?
Yeah, so my so it's family. Like, so my wife is German, so we met travelling in New Zealand, as you do, going through and then back and forth. So so she's from Kiel, which is sort of just outside Kiel, so North Germany, almost in Denmark, right at the top on the Baltic coast. So beautiful part of the world. We must have been 11, 12 years ago. So we sold a 2 up, 2 down in Bear Road. Not far from here.
Not far from
going through and took that, and we bought like it sounds more glamorous than it is, mate, but like a small holding. So 6 acres, a couple of barns and a farmhouse going through in, it must have been late 20s, going through. And my dad calls it a commune, but sort of the idea of sort of like a co-op sort of shared living sort of thing. So we've got 4 flats in it now. Got like small vegetable garden. The 2 fields are still just sort of made for hay going through. So like our neighbour just bales them and does the hay and things like that. We got chickens, we got ducks, sort of thing, middle of nowhere, nature reserve, really sort of nice environment for us to live, for the kids to grow up. And then there's 4 families on the flat. Everyone has their own front door, so you've got your own sort of private space. And then we have sort of shared responsibilities over heating, cutting the grass, doing the chores, that sort of thing.
Wow.
And then I spend majority of I'm probably here maybe not on average, a bit less than a week, a month probably, going through. The team's here, the office is here and things like that. And then I've got a shipping container on the hill at home with fibre broadband connection, and I work from there. It's like 109. My commute is 109 metres or something out of our front door, but far enough away on the hill so I can see when the kids are coming up, or if if I need to go home or whatever. So I was like, I'm super lucky with the sort of balance that I have in my life. So obviously, like, sort of, I'm from here. I grew up here, but I've always travelled. I've always been away. I was in the States for 4 years, New Zealand for sort of just over 1, sort of back and forth, and we lived here for a little while. So Greta was born here, in the car actually.
Wow.
Yeah. So she's a middle child, and then, but the other two in Germany and going through and just that sort of, so we're living out there. My kids can go to school out there. It's much more, we touched on education. That's why we're there. More vocational, simpler sort of thing. The kids don't start school till 7. They still have the pressure of 7 times 9 and that side of things, but just in a different sense. So yeah.
Fair play. Fair play. And again, like you said, get this life, and you just want to create the best for you and your family, and that's what we do, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you get kids along and making those. And it's great, isn't it? Because so much of, especially I guess growing up my sort of generation, there's that feeling of going, right, okay, you do that and talk about milestones you hit. So you find someone, you settle down, married, and house, and mortgage and stuff. And the reason I love, I guess, doing the different things that I've done over the years, and what I want to try and teach the kids. I don't even tell them that. I don't ever say, Daddy's going to work today. I just tell them I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And it's because I love the thing. I'm really fortunate that the businesses I do, I love doing it, right? Like, whether it's hosting an event, doing this, whatever those things are, you go, if I've one thing I can get them to do is like what society's norm is this. Like, you don't have to do that. You can do travel. You can do this. You can do, what I mean? That's such an important, for me, that's an important message, I think. So.
Yeah, I completely agree, and and also that you can decide what you want to do. That side of things for kids when there's so much pressure, and one of the things, and Giz and I talk about a lot with like we want the kids just to be kids. The battle of trying to keep our kids away from telephones. That sort of and trying to set rules and boundaries and stuff like that. It's hard these days.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel you with that.
Yeah, I think most people do.
Yeah. No, mate, absolutely. Well, look, we're coming towards it. It's been brilliant. It's been brilliant chatting to you, and and like I say, seeing the progression of Sea-Lane. Like we touched on it just before, like being one of the that went for that project in 2004, and now seeing just this amazing space that being a big swimmer, I'm so grateful to have in the community. And I think the amount of people I see down there every time I go in swimming, obviously so many people share that, which is why you've created such an amazing thing, right?
Yeah, thank you.
But as always, I like to come towards the end of where you've been, where you are, where you're going. What's your definition of success? How do you define it?
Yeah, I think it. And I think I touched on a little bit there. I mean, I'm happy, so that's enough for me in that sense. The sort of and then it's how you define it. Personally, business. Those sort of things. I don't have any sort of. I'm not really a goals. I don't have a goal that says, right, I want this much money in my bank account, or I want to do this number of projects, or things like that. It's more about getting up in the morning and wanting to do what you are meant to do or plan to do for that day. I think as soon as you get to the point, or certainly for me personally, as soon as I get to the point where I don't want to do this anymore, then I will try. Whether I will be able to stop or not is another question. But yeah, being happy, being like doing your best, as sort of simple as it sounds, or doing as good as you can with what you've got, what you can control. Yeah, I think that for me that that's successful. Leaving, not walking away from something even if it sort of hasn't worked out how you want it to do. And a lot, we touched on the beginning, that golf thing, has a lot. I think that has a lot of influence, on me. Sometimes you can shoot 75 and it's a good 75, isn't it? Sometimes 68, there's like a bad 68 or something, something like that. There's a lot of different factors that influence, I don't think it's this sort of, it's not a binary it's not a binary thing. I certainly don't look at it like that. That you can sort of, you can have successful mistakes, can't you? And all that sort of thing. So
I love that successful mistake. I do, because I even think that I look back. I talk about the salon here a lot when I had to close it in 2013. But it was a failure. Like whatever way you look at it, I had to sell a house, lost lots of money, but learned so much from it. But it brought me here, brought me to like this amazing place that I live. I'm an Essex boy, born and bred, and here I am in this. And I swim in the sea, and I pick my kids. My kids are born here, so I'll pick my kids up from school and take them down the beach. And
there's a time talking about what you're saying there, like the time factor involved in there. So it might be considered a success or a failure at a point in time there, but things evolve, things change.
Absolutely,
you don't know. Like you say, it shapes all of us, all the good and the bad is part of who we are, isn't it? And where we get to.
Love that.
So
look, we're going to finish off. One of our things that we do, obviously part of our events, is our top table ones. We use our conversation cards, and there's a couple. I always pick out a couple. And one of my favourite ones I've been using for the last couple of seasons. This one is if you were on your deathbed and could leave one lesson, what would it be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it would be around maybe. So it's sort of better to regret the things you do than the things you don't. Like, put yourself out there, go for it. We are all going to die at some point. So you have nothing to fear, nothing to lose. You don't put yourself out there, you'll never know.
Love that. Mate, listen, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and chat with me. I've loved getting to know you a little bit.
Fun.
It's been great. And listen, next time you're over, round of golf, mate, we're going to get in. You're going to be on my team at the golf playing 100% plan off scratch. You're in. But listen, and thank you again for what you've done with Sea Lanes, what you guys have created. Because on a personal level, it's amazing. And I think I speak for a lot of the community that will agree with me that it's an incredible thing that we've got here in Brighton. So thank you very much, and wish you continued success with it, mate. So,
cheers, mate. Thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you.
And as they say, it's a wrap.